I would like to do was a brief illustrated guide to the history of silly facial hair. I think facial hair has a long history, particularly with religion, the idea that godliness and holiness somehow tied in with this thing that only men can do on their faces. But I mean, going way back even to the ancient Egyptians, I mean, all of the Egyptian gods had these beards on. The pharaohs would also wear them to show the kind of their togetherness with the gods. Even the female pharaohs, Hatshepsut, who used to wear a big wooden beard on her face during her time in reign to signify that she was godly and holy and a bit like a man. Alexander the Great was probably history's greatest pagonophobe. His fear of beards was so great that he demanded that his armies actually shave all of their facial hair off under the pretense that enemy soldiers could grab them by the beards and give them a good stabbing. So under kind of the fear of Alexander, this swept across his empire in what I'm calling the Great Shady Wave of 3000 and something BC. The only people that really held out against this bald-faced plague were the ancient Greek philosophers. I think we can all agree that was very wise of them. Nothing happened between about 300 BC and about 2 years ago, which is when I decided to grow my first beard. It's not particularly impressive. It's called the Van Dyke. It's a clean, cheap beard, named after the Flemish painter Anthony Van Dyck, who painted in Charles I's court. So I thought, well, portraits. I can do some portraits. This is my attempt at David Lloyd's artwork from the cover of the Alan Moore comic V for Vendetta. I thought, what would I look like as an anarchist? And I think that the evidence is there. Not a great one. I've always had this dream of having this big, terrifying beard. You know, the kind of beard where people don't even bother to learn your name. They're just beard face over there. So this is based on Edward Teach, or Blackbeard, as we probably all know him. He used to tie cannon fuses into his beard and then set fire to them as he boarded invading ships. If piracy doesn't work for me, then I figure I could probably just about manage this mafioso moustache. I think the ability to grow hair on your upper lip is as good a gateway to organised crime as a willingness to steal cigarettes from trucks or put people's heads in vices, or whatever it is gangsters do. And this is the cowboy. I think few things sum up masculinity and virility more than the image of a hairy man sitting on a horse next to some cows. So that's the cowboy, and it should of course be grown on the upper lip. Occasionally people try to grow the cowboy on the chin. When this happens, it's known as the reverse cowboy. The reverse cowboy of course means that you are the exact opposite of a cowboy. This is some regionalised facial hair, particular popular with Yorkshiremen in the 70s. It's actually used as a geographical identifier to strangers. So if someone from Manchester wanders over the hill, they realise that they're coming to enemy territory and they need to get away quick. Not sure what this one's for, to be honest with you. I can only imagine that if you're into extreme sports or fighting or something, you might have that kind of beard. I'm not going to take the mick out of it, because if you are into fighting and you have got that beard, you're better at fighting than me. This is the kind of beard that just happens to you, I think. It's probably useful if you work outdoors, if you live outdoors, or if you've got a small bird that needs to be kept warm during the winter months. Of course you can overdo it with the facial styling, but I personally quite like the idea of joining a troupe of competitive facial hair growers and maybe touring Europe on a penny farthing, just showing my facial hair to children in the village, getting their admiring glances. But as I say, some facial hair kind of goes in and out of fashion. You tend not to see this one on the streets anymore. It's pretty much extinct in the wild, although you can see it in documentary evidence on the History Channel most nights of the week, if you want to have a look at that one. Speaking of dictators, Margaret Thatcher in the 1980s outlawed the wearing of beards in her cabinet, which isn't a euphemism. But I think one thing that she never really realised, if her head was on upside down, she would have had a beard. The great Abraham Lincoln was once said to him by a political rival that if I had your beard, I would shave my face. To which Lincoln replied, if I had your face, I'd grow a beard. For me, that's just a great beard line. And now coming up is Spider-Man, who is here to remind me that with great facial hair comes great responsibility. So please get your prostate checked.